Hi guys, I'm Miles, and this is our group presentation for Indigenous Study. Today, me and my partners, Kitty, Trini, and Olivia, want to briefly talk about some of the Native Americans' philosophical ideas of living in harmony with nature. Our presentation is divided into 4 parts: Introduction, the Black Hill, Pueblo, and the conclusion. Now let's dive into it. First of all, the introduction. Through learning the course of Indigenous Study, we have understood a lot about the Native American, such as who are quote-unquote real Americans, and how they have been treated brutally and unfairly in the history. More importantly, as the original inhabitants in the continent of North America, indigenous people had been living there for thousands of years. They had developed their unique and valuable cultures and ideas. And there is a concept and term that fascinates us a lot. That is the Mother Earth, or Mother Nature. Different tribes and nations may have different creation story behind this concept, but the core values behind it are the same, which contains the relationship between human and nature. Luther Standing Bear is a Sichango and Oglala Lakota chief notable in American history, who was also a Native American author, educator, philosopher, and actor of the 20th century. He once said in his book, Land of the Spotted Eagle, that wherever the Lakota went, he was with Mother Earth. No matter where he roamed by day or slept by night, he was safe with her. They thought comfort and sustained the Lakota, and he was eternally filled with gratitude. He also said, we are of the soil, and the soil is of us. Standing Bear's words suggest a close connection between Native American, especially the Lakota, and the earth and the soil. It reflects a similar idea of environmental protection today. That is, the earth gives birth to the human beings, and we should protect the earth as their mother. Such advanced philosophy created by the Native American is a great legacy for all human beings, and it is very worthy and necessary to be learned and referred to by all people around the world today, especially under the current condition where environmental problems continue to be prominent and worse. Other members from my group will further talk about some philosophical ideas of living in harmony with nature in more specific cases, and we will also connect them to our Chinese cultures to find some similarities in the end.
The Black Hills are a small and isolated mountain range rising from the Grand Plains of North America in western South Dakota and extending into Wyoming, United States. The hills were recognized as Black Hills because of their dark appearance for a distance, as they are covered in evergreen trees. The Black Hills are sacred in most American people's eyes. However, the definition of sacredness varies between American and the indigenous people. In American people's eyes, particularly in the U.S. government eyes, the Black Hills are sacred because the mountains are so rich in gold and natural resources. These resources make the Black Hills a good place for natural extractions to the U.S. government. However, for Native Americans, especially the Lakota people, the sacredness of the Black Hills has nothing to do with rich gold and natural resources. For them, the myths and history of their tribes in connection with the landscapes are what made the Black Hills so sacred. As scholar Bearden illustrated in his essays, sacred places for Native American art, first of all, story places, elaborately woven together on a cultural loom that draws every detail of the landscape within a community of memory. Important to know, although historical records suggest a complicated series of movements into and out of the Black Hills by native people of different tribes, the landscape maintained its sacred characters since incumbent tribes adopted tradition from their predecessor. In his article, the author at Sandstrom explains, as one group replaced another over the last several centuries, this location in the Black Hills continued to be recognized as sacred locales and to operate within a system of ethno-astronomical and mythological belief. The Lakota, the last native people to inhabit the Black Hills, was thus the recipients of the story of the land, which they incorporated into their own cultural and spiritual identity. According to Oglala Lakota cosmology, their forefathers were star people. Recognizing the relationship between the star and the land is vital to their spiritual and cultural self-understanding. The Lakota was drawn to the sacred landscape of the Black Hills by their strong association with astrology, where they connected various natural features with corresponding constellations. Manifestly, the Lakota people and the Black Hills are deeply connected through stories that demonstrate the sacredness of the land. It is inherent in Lakota spiritual and cultural understanding that this land holds infinite significance, and it is thus the obligation of the people of the earth to protect and preserve its sanctity. The Oglala Lakota people have a long-standing claims to the land, not as a property in the Euro-American sense, but as a region of infinite value to their collective identity. The Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868, an agreement between the Lakota Nation and the U.S. government, begins the legal and cultural history of the conflict over these lands between native and non-native people. General coastal expeditions in 1974 verifies the presence of gold in the Black Hills region, resulting in the U.S. government seizing the territory in 1877. In the case United States vs. Nations, the Supreme Court declared in 1980s that the federal government has stolen the Black Hills from the Lakota in violations of the Fifth Amendment. Instead of returning the land designated by the 1868 treaties, the Clans Commission awarded a financial sum equal to the land's values in 1877 plus interest. The Lakota have refused to accept payment because, as Oglala spiritual leader Rick Tudor's explains, all our origin story go back to this place. We have a spiritual connection to Black Hills that can't be sold. I can't think I could face the Creator with an open heart if I ever took money for it. Today, the Lake Lakota maintains a solid connection to the Black Hills, though it rolls with a painful history of conflict with non-native people who also claim the land for other uses. Although the land has been logged, mined, paved, and developed in recent years, the Lakota continue to worship the Black Hills as the heart of everything.
Now let's look at Pueblo, the fixed dwelling places and permanent houses for Native Americans to live. The design of Pueblo implies indigenous people's scientific understanding of the natural phenomenon and their respects for the nature. Part of the underlying ideas of Pueblo was indigenous people's honor on the secret directions. East is the direction from which the sun comes. It is also the beginning of understanding because light helps us see things the way they really are. On a deeper level, East stands for the wisdom helping people live good lives. Because the southern sky is when the sun is at its highest, this direction stands for warmth and growing. The sun's rays are powerful in drawing life from the earth. It is said the life of all things comes from the source. Also, warm and pleasant winds come from the source. To the west, the sun sets and the day ends. For this reason, west signifies the end of life. The great thunderbird lives in the west and sends thunder and rain from its direction. For this reason, the west is also the source of water, rain, lakes, streams, and rivers. Nothing can live without water, so the west is vital. North brings the cold, harsh winds of the winter season. These winds are cleansing. They cause the leaves to fall and the earth to rest under a blanket of snow. If someone has the ability to face these winds like the buffalo with its head into the storm, they have learned patience and endurance. Generally, this direction stands for hardships and discomfort. Therefore, North represents the trials people must endure and the cleansing they must undergo. There are two more secret directions, up and down. Climbing a ladder out of a cave is symbolic of emerging into the world. From indigenous people's songs, we can learn their respectful attitude towards the nature. We lived beneath the earth, and it came time for us to emerge. Here, we met the caretaker of the earth, and his name is Maso. Maso, the caretaker of earth, told us to watch for a great sign in the sky. It will be a symbol that we have reached the center place. So when we saw a bright light in the sky, we came to rest in the southwest. So we knew this is the center place. For indigenous people, the ground provides caves for them to live. The earth receives them and protects them, while the sky and their mother nature give them guidance on how to have a harmonious relationship with the nature and live a better life. Indigenous people believe that these sacred directions give people great power. Pueblo is the physical embodiment of indigenous people's worldview. Indigenous people were good at observing the nature phenomena and used their wisdom and labor to reflect how the sky influences their life. The position of the wall is structured to reflect the seasonal and daily changes of the sun through the shadow. This relationship is found throughout America.
In the final chapter of Mixed Blood Messages, Louis Owens articulates his idea of a land ethic, one garnered from an understanding of American Indian relationships with the natural environment. Closeness of vision, reciprocity, and respect are powerful medicines. As human beings, we are born in nature, live in nature, and will also return to nature in the end. But this doesn't mean the real end. The end also means a new beginning. All in all, our respect for nature will surely bring real blessings for ourselves. The word medicine also shows up during our learning of tooth berries in this course. The people with tooth berries are regarded as sacred, have two souls in their bodies, have two different perspectives to see the world, and should be blessed as they are considered as the medicine for the world. After learning the knowledge of tooth berries, we suddenly realized how different perspectives on things can make such a difference. We never thought about the LGBTQ community like Native Americans, even though LGBTQ marriage has been accepted in many countries or areas. A lot of times we just accept this group. They are still subject to social discrimination and oppression. Tooth berries is also a kind of respect for human naturalness. In our opinion, respect for human naturalness also goes with the flow of nature. Therefore, it's a valuable philosophical wisdom of Native Americans to live in harmony with nature. So, as for why we chose this topic for our last presentation of this valuable course, the reason lies in that we are deeply touched by the natural philosophy, thought of Native Americans. This course led us to know more about the history of Native Americans, not only the history of Native Americans' bloodshed and oppression experience, but also the history related to the crystallization of wisdom summarized by this intelligent race during their long history of living with nature. As Chinese students, we have a strong sense of empathy. This philosophy has similarities with Taoism in China. Taoism believers use this thought to explore the relationship between nature, society, and life. Taoism advocates the way to nature, adapting to nature and living in harmony with nature, which has obvious similarities with the philosophical thoughts of Native Americans. In conclusion, as communication students, we marvel at the cultural similarity born in such cultural diversity, as well as the wisdom of Native Americans born under the nourishment of nature and history. Today, we advocate the harmonious coexistence between human beings and nature, and promote the sustainable development of our world. This kind of wisdom crystallization still has vital power with a great value in today's society. In today's fast-paced world, where people keep their heads down and strive to move forward, we also need to think about the philosophical thinking born in the harmonious coexistence between human beings and nature, as Native Americans do. We need to slow down our pace, reflect on our thoughts and behaviors, and continue our journey with a sense of awe for nature. This is our reference page. That's all about our presentation. Thank you for watching and listening.